What happens when the first movie you directed is your best? This was the case with Dan Gilroy, creating what I believe to be one of the best directorial debuts with Nightcrawler. So why was it so good? What makes it so popular today? And what happened to Dan Gilroy after he seemingly disappeared from directing? What is a Nightcrawler? In this case, it's our main character, Lou Bloom. We originally see him as a man trying to get by with unethical solutions to his problems, yet he is in some way relatable. Not by his actions, but how he seems to be at a disadvantage. He will take any chance he can get to get a foot in the door, but is constantly turned down because they know he's a thief. It's not until he learns about a freelance cameraman recording crime and selling footage where things start looking up for him. It's through this job where Lou is slowly unveiled to us what his true intentions are. At the first chance he gets, he's already taking advantage of people, hiring an intern who desperately needs money and not paying him. This is one of the first instances where the themes of exploitation and manipulation are truly shown. In a sense, Lou Bloom represents the side of the American dream many don't talk about, where success is defined by the power and wealth of a person, in this case taking precedence over anything else in his life. These themes are heavily prevalent throughout the movie, and it's commendable that Dan Gilroy wrote it in a way that isn't obvious until the movie unravels itself, as well as the character. The psychopathic nature of Lou Bloom is only enhanced by a stellar performance from Jake Gyllenhaal. Throughout the movie, his character has a piercing glare, and it's unsettling. It falls into the uncanny valley where his character almost feels alienated from society, so outcasted by his own accord that he becomes detached to the value of human life, and merely sees them as an opportunity for career success. It's as though he himself isn't a person, like mentioned, an alien. This intentional disconnect allows us to question his moral standings against that of our own, and clearly show the deranged nature of him. One of the only times he has any resemblance of human emotion is in the infamous mirror scene, where a sudden burst of rage draws us back in briefly to remind us that he is a person, like someone who learned what humanity was through a corporate algorithm, taking the very basics of us and trying to extrapolate it across a range of emotions. Everyone in this movie has some kind of genuine relationship, a connection to one another that makes them human, exemplifying compassion and emotion, yet Lou never has this. Any quote-unquote relationship he has is only a facade to take advantage of them, except for what appears to be of all things, a plant. An inanimate object that he seemingly cares for by watering each day, perhaps a way to try and fit into a regular society. However, not even a plant is safe from being taken advantage of. Towards the end of the movie, two detectives are certain of what he's been doing, and upon creating a false narrative, he says this.
It began earlier in the day. I was watering my plant.
All it merely was a way to present himself as human-like, saying, look at me, I'm watering my plants, I do care for things, and I'm as human as all of you, when he clearly is not. As the movie unfolds, Lou does more unhinged and morally unchecked acts that further distance you from the character. The more you get to know him, the less relatable he becomes. From forcing relationships with people, intentionally causing rival Nightcrawlers to crash, and altering a crime scene so the footage is more extravagant, Lou becomes even more alienated to the viewer. We no longer have any more of the relatability that there once was, as we see the dominance of power and manipulation fully take over. Media is another area that plays a heavy role. Dan Gilroy clearly wrote it in a way that directly opposes and questions the moral standings of news channels in our lives. The unethically sourced footage that Lou obtains is often debated upon by the news station, whether to purchase the videos or decline. Ultimately, it is often bought, despite knowing that the footage wasn't obtained in a correct manner. They are driven by the profits and viewing numbers rather than the ethics and what is morally okay. It comes into question whether the media is reporting on the crime or adding fuel to the fire, opening doors for those with no moral compass to provide more obscene and dramatic footage, because they know the numbers will be up. If questioned, without hesitation, news stations wouldn't want violence to end. The life of others is a payment for their own gain, allowing higher numbers and higher earnings. They cement negative stereotypes of certain communities, desiring footage of crimes from certain neighbourhoods, as it causes more to be aware and regularly tune in. To present to so many people, there is a certain responsibility they need to uphold, and this movie directly questions that. With so much power, how much manipulation can they really cause? Is what we're seeing true? and how much of it is ultimately emotionally manipulating us into believing the perpetuation of crime and violence is all what it seems. Nightcrawler's ending is a type of ending that sticks with you long after the credits roll. Heavy spoilers ahead. Lou tracks down the criminals who committed a crime in Granada Hills, upholding information from the law as he saw who committed the crime. He plans to follow them to a more densely packed area, call the police, then record the footage to sell later. But Rick, the intern, doesn't like what Lou is trying to do, and calls to have half of the reward money he is set to make from phoning in the criminals, or he will tell the police that he withheld footage from them. Lou ultimately agrees. Upon following them to a diner, Rick's realization kicks in, and the emotional baggage and moral questionability of Lou leads him to wanting to be a part of it no more. Lou, however, wants him to capture this footage, saying that after, he is free to leave. After a shootout occurs, they follow the fleeing criminal through a police chase to a crash where the criminal appears to be dead. Lou pushes Rick forward to capture footage of the criminal in the car. However, he is alive, and ends up shooting Rick whilst Lou waits on the sidelines, capturing all the footage with complete lack of emotion.
You took my bargaining power, Rick. You used it against me. You would have done it again. Just admit it.
I don't know.
I know.
Coming back around to the news station, they find out that the crime that took place in Granada Hills wasn't the kind that they originally aired, but they don't care. They want to air the footage of the police chase and the death of Rick titled Urban Crime Creeping into the Suburbs, which ultimately leads back to the manipulation and the morally bankrupt areas within society that manipulate what we see to increase viewership and ratings. The final scene of Nightcrawler shows Lou talking to a group of new interns with this chilling line.
But remember, I will never ask you to do anything that I wouldn't do myself.
As the viewer, we know that Lou would do anything to get the footage that he does, so telling them not to do anything he wouldn't do doesn't mean a lot. Do what they can, whether morally right, to boost and push his own success. Not only does the script convey the story exceptionally well, but so do the visuals, heavily complementing who these characters are, with a focus on lighting conveying a more in-depth look at Lou. Throughout the movie, he is placed within darkness. He thrives off of his work during the night, a representation of how he is different from society. Shots focusing on Lou during the day often present everything out of focus besides him. He's outcast from society. Compare this to Rick, or anyone else for a matter of fact. They are often surrounded by others, in focus where they belong, opposite to Lou where he's usually alone, complementing one of the other many themes of the movie, loneliness. Day shots may be a representation of him trying to fit into society, but ultimately he doesn't. As Lou here walks out of the station, he's basked in warm light, yet he shields himself with his glasses. He knows that despite trying to fit into a society, he doesn't belong there, and as the shot continues, he walks away from the light and into the darkness. Altogether, Nightcrawler is a movie that is visually stunning and exceptionally well written. Dan Gilroy knocked it out of the park the first time round. So what happened after Nightcrawler? Well, he went on to direct two other movies, that being Velvet Buzzsaw and Roman J. Israel-esque, starring Denzel Washington. However, neither were critically acclaimed nor had the following to cement themselves like Nightcrawler. It feels as though when writing Nightcrawler, it had a lot longer in the oven. Not to say his others weren't driven by passion, but Nightcrawler felt like it had depth and something meaningful behind it. Nowadays, Dan Gilroy continues to find success with writing, most recently in the critically acclaimed series Andor, where he writes alongside his brother Tony Gilroy for some episodes. This has led to the highest rated episodes of the season having his name behind them. The last time he sat in the director's chair was 6 years ago, back in 2019, and is set to direct and write faster, cheaper, better, releasing sometime in the future. But will it compare to Nightcrawler? Only time will tell with what will release. But as for now, it's clear to say that the first film he directed was his best, and it's an exceptional film at that. This has been Film Fanatic. Thanks for watching.